I wasn't in a crash. I didn't go missing. I wasn't sick or hospitalized. But somehow, to the government, and worse, to my daughter, I was dead. Because that's easier. Because the dead don't make phone calls. Because the dead don't stand in line at the post office. I walked in like I always did on the third Tuesday of the month. The air was dry. The lights flickered. A slow fan spun above the counter like it was trying to stay awake. The young postal clerk barely looked at me. Long pink nails. Gum in her mouth. She tapped at her screen. "Sorry, ma'am. The system says the recipient's deceased." She said it like it was weather. Just a passing fact. I adjusted my glasses. "I beg your pardon?" Now she looked up, actually seeing me for the first time. "Evelyn Harper? Born August 19th, 1945? I nodded. She glanced back at her monitor. "Yeah, it's marked here. Deceased. Status updated 3 months ago." 3 months. 3 months ago was when my check stopped arriving. When the envelopes stopped. When silence began. I stared at her, blinking. "I'm right here," I said, louder than I meant to. She winced. "I mean, obviously. You're here. But, maybe go to Social Security? They'll need to fix this. If not, they'll stop all future mail." "They already have," I muttered. She slid the envelope across the counter toward me like it might bite her. I took it with both hands and walked outside into the sun. Across the street, kids poured off a school bus. Laughing. Running. Alive. I stood there, clutching a letter addressed to a ghost. Inside, the house smelled the same as always, a little lemon cleaner, a little dust. The photo frames hadn't moved, my husband Walter in his Navy uniform, my daughter Lauren with her braces, and Tyler, 6 years old in a ninja costume. He'd be 15 now. I hadn't seen him in more than a year. I sat at the kitchen table, ripped the envelope carefully. It wasn't a check. It wasn't anything addressed to me. It was labeled. To the estate of Evelyn Harper. Due to formal notification of death, we regret to inform you that benefit payments have ceased effective May 1st. If this is an error, please submit Form SSA 571. Someone submitted that form. Someone submitted a death certificate. And it wasn't a mistake. I opened my drawer, the one with every document. Birth certificate. Medical card. Walter's life insurance. Proof of everything I was. Still valid. Still here. But somewhere, I had been erased. My phone buzzed on the table. I almost didn't answer. Who would be calling? No one called me anymore. But I picked up. "Hello? Grandma?" The voice was deeper than I remembered, but still soft. It was Tyler. "Are you okay?" I swallowed. "I just found out I died. That night, I didn't sleep. I brewed tea. I stared out the window. Then I dug out my old black ledger, the one where I tracked bills, groceries, birthday gifts. I flipped through until I found it. Help given. $400 for Tyler's braces. $3,500 to Lauren for their emergency car repair. $220 cash for school supplies. $50 every Christmas just in case. Every dollar from my savings. Every favor given with love. I thought they needed me. I thought they cared. Turns out, I was just an account. A monthly transaction. The next morning I walked 2 doors down. Frank opened the door in flannel and slippers, garden dirt on his hands. "I need a favor," I said. "I need someone to go with me to Social Security. In case they don't believe I'm real." He stared at me a second, then nodded. "Want me to drive?" The Social Security office sat in a gray concrete building that looked like it forgot how to smile. Inside, it smelled like air freshener and cheap plastic. People sat quietly, waiting. Some of them looked invisible. When my number was called, I stood with stiff knees and walked to the counter. The girl had a dark braid and a name tag that said Lena. "Hi. How can I help today? I leaned forward. Someone filed a death certificate in my name, I said. And clearly, that's wrong. She blinked, then typed. Click. Tap. Scroll. Evelyn Harper. Date of death, February 18th, cause of death listed as pneumonia. I snorted. Haven't even had a cold in 2 years. She hesitated. Ma'am, there's a death certificate on file. And a signed form. I'm not authorized to show you those. Then who is? You'd need to submit a formal request to the Department of Vital Records. And until then? No benefits. Your account is frozen. She looked away, then back again. I'm sorry. But she wasn't confused. She knew this wasn't just a system error. Someone had made me disappear. Frank and I sat in his truck outside the Social Security office for a long while after the appointment. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and old gum wrappers. Neither of us spoke. He offered me a butterscotch from the glove compartment. I took it without looking at him. I need a copy, I finally said. Of whatever they submitted. Can they even give you that? He asked. Not directly. But the Department of Vital Records can. And I want to see it with my own eyes. It took a week, several phone calls, and a notarized letter, but eventually a large manila envelope arrived at my doorstep. I signed for it with a shaking hand. Inside, a photocopy of my death certificate. Stamped, signed, certified. Filed by Lauren Gray. Relationship, daughter. Cause of death, pneumonia. My breath hitched. I knew Lauren had her struggles, bills, bad relationships, some shame over not finishing college, but I never imagined she'd sign me off the planet. And yet, there it was. Her name, in her long slanted handwriting. I had watched that same hand color birthday cards for Tyler, scribble apology notes in high school, sign thank you letters to job interviews. Now it had signed my death. The betrayal didn't feel cinematic. It didn't come with thunder or rage. It was silent. Like a second death. I didn't sleep that night. Again. I took my walker, hobbled to the living room, and sat in Walter's old chair. The one he used to fall asleep in during Jeopardy reruns. I pressed the certificate against my lap. My eyes moved across the document like they were searching for an explanation between the lines. Something that would make it make sense. But all I saw was bureaucracy. And a lie. A lie someone chose to tell. At noon the next day, I called Tyler. He answered on the second ring. Hey Grandma, he said, cautiously. I need to ask you something. Okay. Do you know where your mother is living now? A long pause. She moved last winter. Didn't really say where. Said it was temporary. Someplace with roommates, I think. Roommates? He sighed. Yeah. Some guy named Brad, I think. Or Brent. I don't know. She's barely around. Sends texts but doesn't visit. And your checks? Clothes? School stuff? I work part-time now. Pizza place. Been saving for a used car. My throat tightened. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It's not your fault. But maybe it was. Maybe all those years of bailing Lauren out had created this entitlement, this expectation that the world, or someone, or I would always cushion her fall. I had taught her she could always come back to me. So maybe, when she couldn't come back anymore, she just got rid of me. I made up my mind that afternoon. I pulled out my gray coat, the one with the missing button, and took the bus to the courthouse. My niece screamed the whole way up the marble steps, but I didn't stop. I requested a legal name verification. A formal declaration of identity. They gave me a date, 2 weeks out. I'd need witnesses. I wrote down Frank's name. Then, hesitating, I wrote down another. Tyler Gray. That night, I mailed a letter. It was the first one I'd sent in months. Handwritten, sealed carefully. Dear Lauren. You probably already know what I found out. You signed my death. And I don't know why. But I want to give you a chance to tell me. Come to the courthouse hearing on the 14th. If you don't show up, I'll assume the truth is too ugly to face. Either way, I'm not dead. And you're going to have to deal with that. The courthouse in Millfield is old brick, red like dried blood, with heavy wooden doors that creak when you open them. I arrived 45 minutes early. I didn't want to run into Lauren until I had to. The hearing was set for 11 a.m., courtroom 2C. I took a seat on a bench in the hallway. My coat smelled faintly of mothballs and menthol. I clutched a manila folder to my chest, as if it were armor. Inside were my birth certificate, a photocopy of my social security card, tax records going back 20 years, a photo of me holding baby Lauren in 1989, and the document that said I was dead. I heard Frank's voice before I saw him. Loud as ever. Is this 2C? I've got a lady here who insists she's alive, and I'm her damn witness. He walked up in a button-down shirt that was ironed crooked, holding a coffee in one hand and a box of pastries in the other. You didn't have to come dressed up, I joked. You didn't say I couldn't, he grinned. You nervous? No, I lied. At 10:59, the courtroom door opened. I scanned every face. She wasn't there. Lauren wasn't coming. But Tyler was. He stepped in quietly, hands stuffed in the pockets of a hoodie, looking so much like his mother had at his age it made my stomach twist. Hi, Grandma, he whispered. I squeezed his hand. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a tighter bun, called the hearing to order. Petitioner, Evelyn Gray, seeking recertification of identity and correction of legal status. Yes, Your Honor, I said as I stood, or tried to. My knees shook, and I had to grip the bench for balance. You claim to be Evelyn Gray, despite an official death certificate issued 6 months ago. Please explain. So I did. I told her everything. The stopped checks. The visit to the Social Security office. The name on the death certificate. The shock. The quiet betrayal. The letter. Frank testified next. He swore under oath that he saw me weekly, helped me with groceries, and most importantly, attended my actual birthday party this April, a month after my listed death. Tyler was last. The judge asked if he believed I was who I claimed to be. He looked her square in the eyes and said, "That's my grandmother. And she's more alive than half the people I know." The judge reviewed the documents. She asked a few questions about my medications, allergies, and memory. Then she looked me dead in the face. "Mrs. Gray, I believe you. Your identity will be reinstated. Your death certificate will be voided. You are, as far as this court is concerned, very much alive." I exhaled. It felt like I hadn't been breathing properly in months. The courtroom clapped. I didn't know people even did that. But still, there was an ache. She didn't come. Lauren didn't come. Not to see me speak. Not to hear me say I forgave her, if she even asked. After the hearing, Tyler walked me to a bench outside the courthouse. I sat, rubbing my knees. "Do you want to go get lunch?" he asked. My treat. That'd be lovely. We picked a little diner with cheap booths and faded ketchup bottles. Frank joined us. We ordered pancakes, even though it was afternoon. I didn't care. Midway through the meal, my phone buzzed. Blocked number. I let it ring. Then voicemail. I played it on speaker, instinctively. Lauren's voice. Unmistakable. "I don't know what you're trying to prove, but you made a scene, Mom. People are going to ask questions now. I was doing what I had to do. You always told me to survive." Well, I did. "You should have stayed gone." No one spoke for a full minute. Then Tyler whispered, "She's scared." That night, I sat by the window of my small apartment and watched the street lamps flicker to life. The world kept moving. Cars passed. Children rode bikes. I was back on paper. I was legally alive. But in my own daughter's mind, I was still buried. 3 days after the hearing, I received a letter from the Department of Social Security. "Dear Ms. Gray, Following the recent legal decision voiding the erroneous declaration of your death, your benefits will be reinstated retroactively. There was a check inside. Back pay for 5 months. I stared at it. Not out of greed, but disbelief. I'd lived off food pantries and Frank's Goodwill all summer. All while Lauren collected my money. I called the number listed at the bottom of the letter. I asked, calmly, if any funds had been previously redirected. They confirmed. Yes, your checks were rerouted to a new account under a Lauren G. Wells. She'd changed her last name. Not legally, not fully. But just enough to open a new bank account. She probably thought it wouldn't raise flags, and it didn't, until I walked into the post office. I sat at the kitchen table with Frank and Tyler and told them everything. Can we press charges? Tyler asked. I'm not sure I want to, I admitted. Frank nearly choked on his coffee. What? She faked your death, Evelyn. I know. But if she goes to jail, what happens to Tyler? Tyler looked up. Don't make this about me. I have to. You're still young. You still have time. She might be a selfish daughter, but she's still your mother. He shook his head. I don't even know what she is anymore. That night, I opened a shoebox I hadn't touched in years. Inside were old photos, letters, even a few cassette tapes. Lauren's baby footprint card. Her first report card. Her drawings. And one thing I never threw out. A letter she wrote me on my 60th birthday. Scrawled in messy handwriting. Thanks for always bailing me out, Mom. I don't know how to make you proud. But I still hope one day I will. I ran my fingers over the ink. The words felt like they belonged to another person. But I couldn't help it, I cried. Not for what she'd done. But for the girl she used to be. 2 days later, I got another letter. This time, not from a government office. It was hand-delivered. Folded in thirds. Slipped under my door. The paper was wrinkled. The handwriting rushed. You could have just let it go. You were out of the picture. You didn't have to come back. Now everyone's looking at me like I'm some kind of monster. I needed that money, Mom. I didn't have a choice. You always said I was a survivor. Well, surviving means doing what others won't. You taught me that. So don't act shocked. L. I stared at the note. No apology. No regret. Just justification. Frank read it and said, she's unraveling. She's cornered, I said. Tyler picked up the letter, looked at it for a long time, then folded it carefully and said, we should go see her. Frank blinked. Why? Because she won't come to us, Tyler replied. And I need to look her in the eyes and ask why she did this. Not for Grandma. For me. We found her 2 days later. She was renting a room above a bar on the east side of town. The stairs reeked of smoke and spilled beer. The walls were thin enough to hear arguments from 3 doors down. Lauren opened the door half an inch when we knocked. When she saw me, her face went pale. When she saw Tyler, it crumbled. Baby, she whispered. Don't, he said, holding up a hand. Don't call me that. He stepped into the room. I stayed in the hall. The conversation was quiet, muffled by the door, but I heard enough. Tyler. Why did you do it? Lauren. I couldn't afford the rent. I couldn't get a job. You were growing up, and I was falling apart. I thought, maybe it'd be easier if I just let go of her. Tyler. So you killed her? Lauren. Not really. I didn't expect her to come back. She was slipping anyway. Getting slower. I thought it'd be peaceful. Tyler. You don't get to decide that. He came out after 10 minutes, eyes red. He didn't say a word as we left. Not to her. Not to me. The apartment felt heavier after that visit. Not because of the silence, I was used to silence. But because of the echo Tyler left behind. He hadn't spoken to me since we left Lauren's place. He just stared out the window in the car, face blank, eyes hollow. He didn't come by the next day. Or the day after. I tried not to call. I didn't want to be one more person demanding something of him. On the third day, he texted. "I need space." I replied. "Take all the time you need. I love you." No response. It was around that time that the local news station called. Apparently someone at the courthouse had tipped them off. Elderly woman proves she's alive after being declared dead by own daughter. I declined an interview. Then another paper called. Then a podcast producer. I didn't say yes to any of them. Because the truth isn't entertainment to me. It's a wound. Still open. Still bleeding. Frank, ever the fixer, said, "Maybe you should talk. Shine a light on what she did." "I don't want revenge," I told him. He looked at me for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "You just want your daughter back." I didn't answer. Because he wasn't wrong. The money was back in my account. The government had fixed my records. The mail came in my name again. But every time I walked past a mirror, I still flinched. Still half expected to see no reflection. Still felt erased. One morning, I found a funeral pamphlet in my mailbox. A cheap, photocopied foldout with curling edges. The cover read, "In loving memory, Evelyn M. Gray, 1953 to 2025. Inside were a Bible verse, a grainy photo of me from 1998, a short blurb about how I was a devoted mother, lost too soon, and an invitation to a memorial potluck hosted by Lauren Wells at the Millfield Community Hall. The date? This Saturday. I stood in my kitchen holding the paper for 10 straight minutes, not moving. She was holding a fake funeral for me. After I'd already come back. "She's unhinged," Frank said, holding the pamphlet like it might catch fire. "That's not grief. That's gaslighting on a nuclear level. She wants to rewrite the story," I said softly. "She wants people to believe you're a ghost." I nodded. Then maybe it's time I haunted her back. I didn't tell anyone I was going. Not even Frank. On Saturday, I put on my nicest blouse, brushed my hair, and took the bus across town. I arrived 10 minutes before the service started. The community hall was decorated with dollar store candles and black tablecloths. People stood around in awkward clusters, holding paper plates of cold potato salad and deviled eggs. No one looked particularly sad. A printed photo of me sat at the front of the room, framed in plastic, surrounded by fake flowers. There was a microphone set up. Lauren was already there. Wearing black. Looking tired, but composed. Playing the grieving daughter. I stood at the back, unnoticed. Until she started to speak. She tapped the mic. "I want to thank you all for coming today. My mother was a complicated woman. Strong. Independent. Stubborn, even. But she meant well. She taught me a lot. About survival. About silence. And about sacrifice." She paused, breathing hard. When she passed this spring, I didn't know how to process it. I didn't get to say goodbye. So this is my way of honoring her. Even if she couldn't be here. Silence. Then, "Oh, but I am." All heads turned. Lauren froze. I walked to the front of the room, calmly, and stood beside the fake shrine. I looked around the room. There were maybe 30 people. Most of them acquaintances, old neighbors, curious strangers. "Some of you might be confused," I said into the mic. "After all, you came to mourn a dead woman. But I assure you, I am very much alive." Gasps. One woman dropped her fork. Lauren turned white as chalk. She told everyone I died. Had a death certificate drawn up. Closed my bank account. Took my benefits. And now, she's throwing me a funeral. While I'm breathing. I took a long pause. I'm not here to punish her. I'm here to reclaim my name. my dignity, and the years I've still got left. Then I turned to Lauren. You said this was your way of saying goodbye. Well, here's mine. And I walked out. People didn't follow. They stayed. Some in shock. Others whispering. I didn't look back. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. But for the first time in months, I felt real. More real than I had since the day the post office told me I didn't exist. That night, Tyler showed up at my door. I heard what you did, he said quietly. I didn't do it for the drama. I know. He stepped inside. His eyes were red again. I want to live with you, he said. Not with her. My heart stopped. You're almost 18, I whispered. I'll be 18 next month, he said. But I don't want to wait. I don't feel safe there anymore. So I made up the couch. Found him extra blankets. And when he finally fell asleep, curled up on the sofa with his backpack beside him, I sat on the edge of my bed and let myself cry. Not because I was broken, but because, maybe for the first time in years, I was whole. A week after Tyler moved in, we started to settle into a strange rhythm. Quiet dinners. Homework at the kitchen table. TV reruns at night. It was peaceful. Uneasy, but peaceful. But peace doesn't last long in a house with ghosts. On Thursday morning, I went to open the mailbox and found an envelope. No return address. No stamp. Just my name, Evelyn M. Gray, written in neat, looping letters. Inside was a single sheet of paper, printed in a font I didn't recognize. Dead things should stay dead. You're stealing what was never yours to take back. That was it. No signature. No threats. Just a warning. I showed it to Frank. He frowned. Do you think it was Lauren? She's never been this poetic, I said. Then who? I didn't know. But I felt the chill all the way to my bones. The next day, we got another letter. This one addressed to Tyler. Same style. Same tone. Blood is blood. And yours is dirty now. You picked the wrong side. There are consequences for betraying the dead. Tyler stared at it for a long time. Is this a joke? He asked. A prank? I shook my head. Frank looked grim. This isn't just about money anymore. We went to the police. The officer at the desk took our statements. They made copies of the letters, promised to keep an eye out. But without threats or a known sender, there was little they could do. Tyler started double-checking locks. I left lights on at night. Frank offered to install cameras. But what scared me most wasn't the idea that someone was watching. It was that someone believed I was actually dead. And that I had come back when I wasn't supposed to. 3 days later, a neighbor knocked on my door. Mrs. Jensen. Mid-70s. Always wore pink curlers. Never minded her business. I just had a visit, she said. From who? A woman. Said she was your cousin. Tall, pale, stringy hair. Said she was collecting memories for a eulogy she didn't get to give. She asked me when the last time I saw you was. I blinked. What did you say? Mrs. Jensen shrugged. I said I saw you on your porch just yesterday. And then? She left. But she looked annoyed. I asked if she gave a name. She hadn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 2:14 a.m., the doorbell rang. I froze. Frank was already halfway to the door when I stopped him. Don't, I whispered. Someone's out there. I know. That's why we're not opening it. We checked the cameras in the morning. The footage showed a figure, tall, feminine, standing on the porch for exactly 5 minutes. Never moved. Never knocked. Just stood and stared at the door. Then turned and left. Later that day, I opened my closet to grab a sweater. On the inside of the door, written in sharp black ink, were 5 words. You were dead. Stay dead. After the writing in the closet, Tyler refused to sleep alone. He dragged his blanket to my room and slept on the floor. I didn't argue. I couldn't. I was too busy lying awake at night, watching the shadows. Frank came by every other day now. Brought groceries. Checked the windows. Installed motion sensors. This is someone close, he kept saying. Someone who knows your schedule. You're home. I nodded. But I didn't want to say what I really feared. What if it's not someone from the outside? What if it's someone we let in? One afternoon, Tyler came home with a box. Found this in her garage, he said. He meant Lauren's garage. You went back there? She was gone. I needed some of my old stuff. This was in the attic. He placed the box on the table. Old notebooks. Drawings. School awards. A few crumpled photographs. And one spiral-bound journal. Black cover. No label. Just a faint symbol on the front, a circle with a slash through it. I opened it carefully. Inside were pages of Lauren's handwriting. Except this wasn't a diary. It was something else. Each page had a date. And under it, entries like, she looked through the window again. I swear she's watching me. Dead doesn't mean gone. She's still here. I can feel it in the walls. Tyler's seeing her too. I need to erase her properly. This time for good. My hands began to shake. She was keeping this while I was alive. I whispered. Tyler stared, pale. She wrote this before she told people you died. The last entry was from just 2 weeks ago. The woman in my dreams has her face. But her eyes are wrong. I have to finish the second death. Or she'll take everything. I took the journal to the police. They kept it. Promised a psychological evaluation. But a few days later, we got a call. Lauren had checked herself into a private psychiatric facility. Without a court order. Without telling anyone. Voluntary admittance. She'd vanished inside. And no one was allowed to visit. Then, things got weirder. Tyler started sleepwalking. I'd find him in the kitchen at 3 a.m., staring at the fridge. Once he was in the backyard barefoot, just looking at the sky. He remembered none of it. Then one night, I heard footsteps upstairs. But when I checked, Tyler was asleep on the couch. Frank wasn't there. I walked up slowly. The attic door was open. Dust floated in the air like mist. And in the far corner, someone had written something new on the wall, in red marker, big and uneven. She is not your mother. I backed out and closed the attic. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the message. But because I kept wondering something I hadn't dared ask myself before. What if they were right? What if I really did die, and something else came back? The next morning, Tyler wasn't in the house. His shoes were gone. His backpack missing. I found a note on the kitchen table. I need to know what's real. Don't come looking for me. 3 days. Tyler had been missing for 3 days. I called the police. Filed a report. Posted on every neighborhood app. Nothing. Frank organized a search party. Still nothing. I wasn't eating. Barely sleeping. Just staring at the attic door. I knew the answer was there. Not in the attic itself, but in what came from it. On the 4th night, the house phone rang. An actual landline. We never used it. I picked up. Silence. Then, "You remember now, don't you?" The voice was female. Soft. Familiar. But wrong. Hollow. Like someone trying to impersonate someone I once loved. "Where's Tyler?" I asked. The line clicked. Then silence again. I returned to Lauren's garage. I needed to find what else she'd hidden. I broke in. It was empty, abandoned, like she knew I'd come. In the basement, I found a trunk. Inside, photos. Old ones. Of me. As a child. But some I didn't recognize. Photos of another little girl, one with eyes just like mine. Except, I'd never seen her before. Underneath the photos was a birth certificate. Name, Eliza Marie Gray. Mother, Lauren Patricia Gray. Date of birth, 1991. Status, deceased, 1999. I was born in 1991. I stared at the certificate, my hands trembling. Had she made a new identity? Had I been someone else? Or worse, was I Eliza? Back home, I pulled out all my childhood documents. Something didn't match. My first school record was from 2000. There was nothing before that. No photos of me younger than age 8. And then I remembered what Frank once said in passing. Lauren was never the same after her daughter died. I confronted him. We sat in silence in his car. "Tell me," I said. "Was I her daughter?" Frank looked like he'd aged 10 years in 5 seconds. "I don't know," he whispered. "She brought you home one day. Said she adopted you from a distant cousin. But no paperwork. No trail. She just had you." I blinked. "So who am I?" He said nothing. Just looked at me with sorrow. "You always seemed like her," he said finally. "But not quite." That night, the doorbell rang again. I opened it. Tyler stood there. Pale. Thin. But alive. He stepped in silently, handed me a small device, a recorder. "I found her," he said. "Where?" "She found me first." I pressed play. The voice was Lauren's. But not the Lauren I remembered. Calm. Measured. Cold. She was never supposed to grow past 8. That was the deal. The spirit. The trade. I got her back, just long enough to feel whole again. But it wasn't right. She kept changing. The soul didn't stay pure. So I started over. Erased her. Told the world she died. But it didn't take. You can't kill something that didn't belong to you. The recording stopped. I looked at Tyler. "I'm not who I think I am," I whispered. He nodded. "And that's why she couldn't let you live." We left that night. Burned the journal. The attic door. Everything. The next morning, the house burned down. Fire investigators said it was faulty wiring. But we knew better. Lauren was never seen again. The psychiatric clinic claimed she'd signed out and vanished. We live in Oregon now. New names. New jobs. New history. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wake up to Tyler staring at the wall. And when I ask what he's looking at, he says only, "The attic." Even though we don't have one. Sometimes. The worst betrayal doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people who raised you. Who smiled at you while digging your grave. I didn't lose my life when they said I died. I lost it the day I realized. I was never truly theirs. I was a replacement. A shadow. A convenient silence in their ugly story. They told the world I was gone. But I came back. And now, I carry everything they tried to bury. If you've ever been lied to, if you've ever wondered whether your family would notice if you disappeared, you're not alone. I told my story because silence almost killed me. And maybe you needed to hear it too. Some stories hurt to hear, but they matter because they're real. If you made it this far, thank you. Stay with us. There are more stories to tell, real ones, and no one deserves to face them alone. Subscribe. If this story touched something in you, don't scroll away.